What up? Welcome to the GC Hammer Show. That's Jack Hammer. I'm Grant Cohn. This is being simulcasted live on both of our channels. And we're going to be disagreeing a fair amount today. So if you think Jack Hammer is winning the argument or making better points or more handsome, or you simply want to show Jack Hammer some love, go over to his channel, watch the show, click through the ads on his channel and give him the super chats. Jack, how you doing?
Hey, I'm good. How you doing, Grant?
I'm pretty good. I'm excited to talk about this Ian Rappaport thing because he was so casual going on the Pat McAfee show, saying like almost like he was not on the Pat McAfee show, like, hey guys, you want to hear something? Niners called me and they pushed back. Like, he was telling us a secret. And I think it's so funny. We think of Pat McAfee, or maybe some people do, as like an investigative reporter. Like he's not being in constant contact with these teams all the time. And so that was good. And he seemed like he was like letting us behind the curtain. Or maybe he was just playing us along with the 49ers. Why do you think the 49ers waited essentially a month and a half to call up Ian Rappaport and be like, hey, man, your report that Sam Darnold's most likely going to start week 1 is way off. Why would you write off Trey Lance? They waited a month and a half to do it. Why do you think they did?
Well, I don't know if they actually waited. I don't remember him saying a time frame there, other than that.
I guess I'm assuming
that he made he said what he said, and then at some point they reached out to him. To me, I think it makes more sense that the 49ers would have reached out to him immediately. Not necessarily immediately, like within that day or two, asking him, hey, why are you doubting Trey Lance here? And it goes back to I think when you look at this, it's like, why are the 49ers even reaching out to Ian Rappaport to begin with? Because there's really no reason for them to be worrying about what Ian Rappaport is saying in terms of who their quarterback is. I don't remember the 49ers making calls to Rap Sheet or any reporter back in 2021 during the draft when everybody was wrong about who they were going to take Mac Jones. So why did they feel the need to even reach out here? I think that's really the bigger question, is why at all, rather than the time frame. Because I don't think the timing happened after the draft. It just sounds like they just reached out to him and said, hey, why don't you believe in our guy?
Well, we don't know the exact timing, but I think the timing is extremely important. And I'll say why. To me, if Ian Rappaport said he essentially reported that Sam Darnold most likely will start week 1. If they had, that was at the annual meetings in Arizona in March. If the Niners had contacted him, like, dude, what are you talking about? And he waited 6 weeks to like correct it, that's unprofessional. Like, dude, they corrected you and you didn't say anything. Like, what kind of false impression are you trying to create and why? Like, what agenda do you have? Are you friends with Sam Darnold? That to me is strange. What makes a little bit more sense, and we don't know for sure. I'm just guessing. But the reason I assume that he heard recently is, I don't know. I mean, they reach out to you now and then you say something about it. Now, what's strange is he said it so casually. He didn't make a report on NFL Network. He just like let it slip on Pat McAfee's show, which I think is interesting. To me, the timing it's after the draft. And I believe there was a Trey Lance hotline and they were looking at it and either it didn't ring or they answered it and they didn't like what they heard. But the phone lines were available. I think they were for Ayuk too. No disrespect to Ayuk. They were open for business. Business didn't get done. And I think now, it's like, you know what? Maybe we got to pump up that trade value that we may have not helped. That's the cynical version of me. The other version makes me feel like, hey, they just got to OTAs. They just saw Trey Lance in person for the first time since he broke his ankle. He's been working with a new quarterback coach. He's been working with Patrick Mahomes. Maybe they like what they see. That's the non-cynical version of me. And that's why I think the timing is important. But again, we have no idea what the timing actually is.
Those are both really good takes. I agree with you. That's the trade take was the direction I was leaning towards. Why I think they probably did it a little bit sooner, because that was when we were hearing about, it seemed like John Lynch was kind of putting out there, hey, he's available if you want to come and get him. Kind of same thing with Brandon Ayuk, and nothing happened there. So it's almost like, hey,
we'll listen on anyone except for Nick Bosa and this person, but we'll listen to that hotline is done, but this hotline is open. You got to love that. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And so I that's why I feel like this probably happened sooner rather than later. And I don't think it would have come out at all if it wasn't for they were just having a conversation and somebody brought up the Sam Darnold. They brought up the Matt Mayoko thing. I think is kind of what kicked off the conversation on Sam Darnold, right? Was the Mayoko best thrower in 49er history comment and so on. I
think that one brought a little bit too much attention. Like the whole idea that the Niners were think they were just trying to whisper a little bit, like, we really like Sam Darnold. There's a reason we gave him $3.5 million guaranteed. There's a reason there's options in his contract. But Matt kind of took it to another level. Like, this guy is a super quarterback. And I don't think the Niners even had that impression. Like, maybe they talk that way privately, but publicly, I think they just want people to look at Sam Darnold as a fun little project that could pay off down the line. But I don't know how invested they want to look like they are in Sam Darnold, because that's a major reclamation project too. There's no guarantees with Sam Darnold.
Yeah, and there's no guarantees with either of these two guys. But the thing is that with Mayoko's thing, because we haven't talked about it since then. When I heard him say that, and I kind of thought back, my take on it was it sounded very similar to what that Philadelphia reporter was saying about Nick Mullins a couple of years ago. How he's the best thrower in camp, not necessarily the best quarterback, but he's the best thrower. That's kind of what and so from that standpoint, I kind of get what he's talking about, what Mayoko is talking about. But yeah, it's a little.
To me, though, it sounds like saying Lonnie Walker is the greatest shooter in Lakers history.
Yeah, and it doesn't.
I'm like, hey, man, he did. Yeah, I don't know.
And that doesn't come out if he's not.
Yeah.
If he's not hearing that from someone around that building, he's not saying that. He's not going to come out and just say that on his own. I don't think.
Agree. Not to put words in Maddie's mouth or anything, but
yes.
So I didn't really watch that much of this clip because I can't stand Pat McAfee personally. So you watched the rest of it. What else did Ian Rappaport say that you found interesting?
Well, he was also talking about. So there was a part about what he said there, and he went on to talk about how during the draft, he was talking to all the different coordinators who might be looking at quarterbacks. And there was one coordinator in particular who told him that Sam Darnold in 2022, the little bit that he played at the end of the year, there were stretches there where he looked as good as he's ever looked in his career. That was one of the things that he.
Is that a compliment?
You can take that for however you want to take it, depending on how it is. And the other thing that he did mention was.
It is a nice thing to say.
He came back and he talked about the performance that Darnold had at the beginning of the 2021 season when he had all of the weapons around him. And that's I find both those interesting because listening to them talk, it sounded like 49ers Twitter because of the way that they were going back and forth. And it's the guys who were, why are you bringing this guy in? Well, he brought him in for this reason and all.
Oh, sure.
Does anybody know what's happening over here with Brock and all that kind of stuff? It was an interesting little kind of a back and forth.
I mean, look, you have to have a reason to bring in Sam Darnold. I mean, it's not like we're going to be like, hey, he's trash, but we gave him $3.5 million. Like, of course there are reasons that you would want to bring him in and feel like he has the upside to be more than just a third or second string quarterback. I totally get that because you could have drafted, Stetson Bennett. You could have drafted Dorian Thompson-Robinson. You could have done all kind of stuff, but you brought in Sam Darnold, and we're seeing the reasons why, and the reasons are legit. They carry water. There might be something there. He did show flashes last year. But I think where some people get their feathers ruffled is when they think that all of a sudden the 49ers are more invested than Darnold than Trey. And I think with the Niners, who knows how they really feel. But they're trying to push back against that notion publicly for a lot of reasons. It doesn't do Lance any favors. It doesn't do Darnold any favors. And it does hurt whatever trade value they're trying to cultivate with Lance. So it makes sense for them to, at this point, to be like, hey, shut up with the enough. It's not helping.
Exactly. Yeah. Just let us do it. Let us do what we want to do over here. Come on.
But can we talk about my non-cynical theory real quick? OTAs haven't started. Like, they're not competing, but they are throwing. They are warming up. And as someone who's watched Trey Lance warm up a lot, you can just tell that day whether he has it. You know what I mean? There are days when he's like every 10th throw is just off, and you're like, oh, it's gonna be one of these days, huh? Like, you don't have much confidence in your arm today, do you, Trey? So I don't know. Maybe they've been watching him for a couple weeks and they're like, okay, all right, looks a little bit better. I hope that's the case. I have no idea. Well, I guess we'll see for ourselves.
We'll see it for ourselves, but I do think that there was a comment that was made by Kyle Shanahan or John Lynch. I don't remember which one. That the work that he did with the quarterback coach, we've seen the videos of the little highlights and stuff, that has worked and that he's looking good. So he probably is looking good. They're you're going against there, throwing around in shorts. Who knows exactly what they're doing? And I do hope that he looks good, because if he looks good, it's going to make for a really interesting summer.
Yeah, I mean, fans should know that he's been working with a different quarterback coach than the guy he worked with the last 2 years. Nothing against the guy he worked with I think he was working with like Tom House, like some of the best coaches in the league, but clearly he wasn't getting results. So try something different. He's been with Mahomes. And also, one more thing that I think is important. Last year, he was 22, and he kind of had this attitude. I can't prove it, but he kind of had a bit of a naive attitude. Like, hey, this is my team, and it's going to be my team for a while, and I can sort of ease into this. And you saw some pictures of him partying in Mexico. Now you saw the same pictures of Debo. So it wasn't scandalous, but you don't see that right now. And then there was a video that came out during the season of him making it rain. I don't think you're going to see stuff like that. I think he sort of gets the picture like this really is the not for long league. And even though they traded up for you a million times and drafted you in 3 different years, like they will kick you out for Brock Purdy tomorrow. And I think maybe, I'm just projecting all this on him, maybe he has some urgency that he didn't have last year. Maybe.
I hope he does. I mean, it seemed like he does, right? It seemed like he does when you.
Like, why else would he be working out with Mahomes, right?
Right. And he said it himself. He talked about it during the Super Bowl week that, he's expecting to compete. He wants a chance to compete. He wants that opportunity to compete. So I think he knows that he has to get ready to compete. And I like what you said too about, you can tell what kind of day he's going to have just by the way he looks in the warmups, because how many times are we watching him? And, I know they throw when they're throwing to the ball, like their stuff that they're going to be working on that day, and they're throwing to the ball boys and coaches, and all of a sudden, you see, airmail's one, and you're like, oh wait, that's not something an NFL quarterback should be doing on that.
Correct.
These are layups right here because there's nobody around him. So,
which just shows that he's fighting. He's still battling and trying to find whatever motion or release point, arm slot works for him. And it's like, dude, you're running out of time, but I know you're only 20. I know you turned 23 today. Happy birthday, Trey Lance. But it really is a not for long league, and they like Brock Purdy, and they seem to like Sam Darnold. So it's time.
Yeah, he's only 23, but the hard part about it is he's been here for 3 years. They're running out of time with him.
Yeah.
Again, and this isn't
that's the hard part. But he's expensive.
This is the other thing, is that they are running out of time because he is getting more expensive. And they just talked about how important it is for their salary structure for them to be able to make it work with a cheap quarterback. Well, now the guy that's pushing them is a tenth of the price. So it's a big difference.
That's a good point. I mean, if this is a backup quarterback competition, it's hard to keep a backup quarterback who's costing you $10 million. Now, you can't do anything about it. They can't make him cheaper. And it's possible that they wanted to create that cap space to trade him, right? Because it would accelerate the signing bonus onto the cap. Yeah. This will never know.
That's a little
Anything else about that interview that interests you?
I think those were the main things they talked about. Right. Like I said, that was the main takeaways that I took from it.
All right, Fish and Chips says Rap Matt was a victim of the Niners front office bait and switch. To me, it almost felt like Rappaport was hearing whispers about how much they liked Darnold and ran with it. And then now they didn't trade him, and they're like, hey, man, can you stop and just say that we like Trey? And he's like, okay, I'll do that. I'll take one for the team. Fine, but you guys owe me in the future. I'll look stupid now, but you guys owe me in the future. I kind of feel like that's what happened, but I can't prove it. I don't know.
Yeah, and he didn't really. It's not like he was like, no, they really like him. He just kind of said they asked me to why, and I just kind of was like,
well, yeah, he didn't change his opinion, right? He's not like, hey, he's not like, hey, I'm optimistic in Trey Lance now, or they're optimistic. They asked me a rhetorical question and I answered it.
Yeah, because that is part of it too, because as they're talking through, he never goes back and says,
I was wrong.
As they were talking through it, there's a point where he talks about, again, Sam Darnold starting week 1, week 2, and does Brock Purdy get back on the field? He didn't say that about Trey Lance. He said that about Darnold, even later on in that discussion.
Mm-hmm. Battle Beast 19 says Trey versus Pat, Super Bowl 58. How would you feel, Grant? I would feel like probably the Chiefs would win. But I'm picking. I don't root against Patrick. I don't bet against Patrick Mahomes. That dude is crazy. Unless he's missing all of his offensive linemen. It's the only way I would ever bet against Patrick Mahomes. Best player I've ever seen. No guarantee with Purdy either. Ain't that the truth?
Yep.
No guarantee he'll be alive tomorrow. Gammon Brown says, can we give Brian Greasy his due respect? Garoppolo is having a career year. Help Brock look like a vet. Greasy magic on Darnold and Lance. It's a good point.
Yeah. No,
cynical me would say Purdy came in pretty experienced, but non-cynical me would say he still was a rookie and Brian Greasy was his coach. So respect. Yeah, maybe.
I think there is definitely got to give Greasy his due respect, and Garoppolo was playing better.
He was.
before his
cutting the
injury.
turnovers out.
Yeah,
he was.
Mhm.
K-Mana 7 says if Lance keeps a recovering Purdy off the field with his play, what would be the trade value of Purdy? Interesting. Theoretically, what is Purdy coming off this stretch and coming off this surgery worth?
Yeah,
What would he be worth without the surgery? Right now,
without the surgery, you're probably looking at, I would say, probably maybe a second or a third.
Ooh, I was almost going to say a first,
You know,
but maybe that's getting a little ahead of myself. It still is 8 games.
yeah, it's right
But
there.
coming off the surgery, someone might want to see him play before they trade for him. Guess.
Yeah. No, with that, it's definitely gonna kind of take his value down.
But also, like, let's say Trey Lance. Oh, Jackson, I'm back. Let's say Trey Lance blows the Niners away and becomes Patrick Mahomes and is Josh Allen is everything they ever hoped. Having Brock Purdy is still a great thing to have. I mean, he's a really good quarterback too, who you can win with. He's cheap as hell. He's almost like an intern. Did you hear me?
Yeah.
See what I'm saying? Like, even if Trey Lance fulfills all of his promise and turns into Jalen Hurts plus, Josh Allen this year, you still want Brock Purdy. Like, quarterbacks get hurt. You can win with Brock. He's good too. I mean, he's under contract for 3 more years. You're basically paying him $10.75 an hour.
Yeah, that's where, if you roll with Lance, you keep Purdy. That's when,
yes,
there's no reason to trade him at this point. It's the opposite with Lance because he's getting to the end of his contract and he's a lot more expensive. With Purdy, you hold on to him because he's going to be a better backup. He showed how good he is as a backup last year coming off the bench, and so I don't think you trade him at all. I think he's here for the term of his rookie contract.
A backup quarterback who's making $900,000 a year, who you can put up 35 points a game with and win playoff games is invaluable. There's Absolutely. That's invaluable. Niner Grandpa says, Grant, who am I in the Niners organization? I don't know. You tell me. Niner Grandpa. Who's a grandpa in the organization? Not Lynch.
Guess who?
Not Kyle.
40.
Not Trent Williams. Not Kittle. I don't know.
Niner Grandpa.
Mike Shanahan, is he in the organization though?
I would say since he has an office pretty much in the
building,
It's
Mike Shanahan. Hey, Mike, thanks for watching the show. Big fan. All right. This is very interesting. The 49ers are having a quarterback competition, which I'm a little skeptical of in the sense I've never actually seen a quarterback competition in camp. Like, they don't have 2-a-days. They have limited reps. Is it really going to be a straight up 50-50 split in reps? And if so, I'm highly intrigued because that will be great for my views and hits. So hoping that's the case. And I'm really looking forward to it. But a lot of people that are big in Trey Lance's corner are just skeptical about the whole thing, worried about it. And I think some people feel like, I don't mean to speak for you. They feel like, hey, man, if Lance is good, you have nothing to worry about. What's the problem? I do feel like some people feel that it might not be a fair fight and that this quarterback room may not be an equal opportunity workplace. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you got really important players buddying up with Darnold already. And I could see why some Trey Lance fans feel like, man, the locker room's already made their choice before the competition started. Although maybe not. There was a picture of George Kittle sending a cake to Trey Lance, although we don't really know if he sent them that cake. That could have been the PR staff. Hey, say George sent it. But if it was George, maybe George did playing down the middle. I really think George likes whoever is going to give him the damn ball. That's my hot take on the situation.
Yeah, well, I think that's exactly what it is. Hey, whoever's throwing me the ball, that's the guy I like. And he's kind of been that way during the offseason. Yeah, Brock Purdy is great. Yeah, Trey Lance, he's really good too. Whoever, he's kind of like, I just want these guys to stop arguing, give me the ball, and let me score touchdowns and make money and do my wrestling moves.
Yeah,
that's pretty much George Kittle in a nutshell. As far as the trade, why are Trey Lance fans skeptical? Like for me, this question to me is why are Trey Lance? Because it's easy to spot who the really strong Trey Lance believers are. Why are the Trey Lance believers so up in arms about the fact that Trey Lance might have to compete with Sam Darnold? It doesn't make sense to me. Because if you believe that Trey Lance is all these things that you're telling everybody, then why are you worried about a guy who you also feel is shitty? Like,
Right. Well, what you're saying, I think, like,
don't think he's a good player.
you're talking about a world where it's football and it's a true meritocracy. And I would like to believe that that's the culture the 49ers have set up. But I think some people feel that that's not necessarily the culture that the Niners have set up, and that it's a clique on offense, and that Sam Darnold has like effortlessly slid into this clique already, and it's like visually apparent. Whereas Trey Lance is a lot younger than those guys and hasn't. And that's where people start bringing up racial stuff because it feels like a non-equal opportunity workplace. Not that Kyle is a racist or that Kittle is a racist. I just think Kittle is going to, if Kyle leaves it up to Kittle to pick the quarterback, Kittle's going to pick the quarterback that throws him the ball the most. It's not about race. It's about Kittle. You see, to me, it's about Kittle. So Kittle can lean on Darnold. Hey, you want to play? You want to play? You want to get on the field? You know what you got to do, right? Give me the damn ball. Yeah. Give me the freaking ball. Yeah.
Yeah. This is a fun conversation. It's one that I've had so many times. I think this even goes back to during the season with Jesse on my channel, where we had this discussion about are the 49ers going to, does Lance have a realistic chance of getting the job? And my take on it to Jesse during that conversation, and my take on it still, is that Trey Lance absolutely has a chance to take the job. He just needs to go out there, and Trey Lance needs to go out there and be able to perform kind of like what we saw from Brock Purdy when he stepped into the games, but he needs to be able to do it during practice. He needs, because it's going to be practice first, right? He needs to be able to go out there, and he needs to be able to, complete his high rate of passes, not turn the ball over, make throws at all levels of the field, and just be the guy that we've all expected him to be since he got drafted. And if he can do that, I think he beats Sam Darnold, and I think he really starts to push Brock Purdy, especially if Purdy's not healthy for week one. Then definitely he can take that job and possibly hold on to it for the entire season.
Yeah. Agree. Also, I started this off saying I'm intrigued to see if this is going to be a real quarterback competition, because I've never seen a real quarterback competition. These reps are precious. And my guess is it's not going to be a real quarterback competition. They're going to say, Sam's still in the offense and Trey's been here. I think Trey's going to get the majority. I could be wrong. I think Trey's going to get the majority of the first team reps. And unless he's freaking awful, he's going to start week one because they're trying to build up his trade value. And I think they look at Darnold the way they looked at Purdy last year. Like, we could replicate the whole Purdy process with Darnold, but that was, not playing him right away. Don't make him replace Lance in week 2. Wait until week 13 because he's new to the team and still learning the offense. Maybe they feel that if they could stash Darnold, he would have his best chance to be successful down the stretch. I just feel like Lance is going to start week 1 for a lot of reasons, again, unless he's freaking awful. So I'm curious to see, will Darnold beat him out, or will Lance just give the job away?
Yeah, and I don't think you're wrong on that one too, because I do think you go into this and it's a competition, but there's always levels and layers to the competition, right? So we know today that if he was healthy, Brock Purdy goes in and he's number one, even though he's competing with Trey Lance, and then so Trey Lance has to beat him out, and then we know that Sam Darnold's the bottom of all of them, so he has to beat out all 3 of them in order if everybody's healthy. So we know there's layers to this. In terms of the 50-50 split, in terms of when you're asking that question, are you asking it as 50-50 with the starters, or are you saying just 50-50 in terms of the number
with the
of reps?
starters? Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And from that standpoint, I can understand where it's probably not going to be 50-50 between Lance and Darnold. I would expect them. You've been there enough. That the reps, you don't lose reps. And I don't think that it's really, for me, when I look at this, I don't think the 49ers, even though they're going to want to try to get Darnold some reps with the ones during OTAs, which is what they've said. They haven't even said it's going to happen in training camp yet. He was very specific, Shanahan, in terms of it being during OTAs. He didn't say that it was going to happen in training camp. So we'll see where this goes. But
reevaluate.
That even with if these quarterbacks early on in camp are working with the number 2 offensive line, they still have starters that are rotating in with them at wide receiver and running back and all those kind of things.
True.
So they can.
It's more about the defense you're going up against and evaluate, and us evaluating them against equal playing field a little bit. But again, there's some backups that rotate in with the starters as well on defense.
And I think that's where our evaluation is different from the teams because we
Yeah.
look at it, we're looking a little bit more at because we don't know all
Competition.
the plays and we're not
Right.
watching the film afterwards because we don't have access to all that and all that kind
We
of
don't
stuff.
really know
So,
if they're executing right. We just know
right.
how they're
And
competing. Yeah.
exactly. That's exactly it.
Right.
A guy
Yeah.
can complete a pass, but it's not where Shanahan wanted the ball to go to get because he told us this last year. You guys, I was told that it was a good day yesterday. I didn't think it was a good day because then
Right.
you guys liked it. I
Or a
thought
guy could throw an incomplete pass and it could be exactly what Kyle wanted. Maybe someone on defense made a good play, or someone on offense wasn't where he's supposed to be. Whatever.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And the same thing
We
with
just
an
don't know.
interception. He said that
Right.
about I don't care if it's an interception as long as he's going to the right place. Now we know that he's reading it right. Now we need to get him there
Right.
quicker. That kind of stuff.
Good point. Well, we'll see how this quarterback competition shakes out. It's going to be very interesting. Well, I guess it's going to be 2 weeks until we are out there the first time.
Yeah,
the
2 weeks.
end of 2 weeks. Fish and Chip
Well,
says Sammy Dimes, best Niner armed thrower ever. Says Kid Kyle. Sammy Dimes. We're calling him Sammy Dimes now?
Sammy Dimes.
Sammy Dimes.
Okay.
Joshua Wyatt says the only answer I see to the crazy Trey Lance situation is that Brock Purdy is behind schedule. If Brock Purdy isn't actually due back this season, everything else makes sense. I went back and listened to the Ian Rappaport report from the annual owners meetings when he says that Darnold's going to start week 1. What he said was Kyle finally revealed publicly that the 49ers don't know if when Brock Purdy's going to be ready. It seemed like what Rappaport was saying is they're putting a brave face on it publicly, but privately they don't know.
And again, I think this goes back to they don't know. They don't know for sure. They have a feeling of they have a feeling. So like when I listened to what Shanahan said there, he said it could be training camp, it could be week 1, it could be week 4. We won't know until this point in time, which is going to be around the beginning of June. And at that point, they'll get a better idea. The sooner Brock Purdy begins his throwing regimen, that's when they're really going to be able to start to know what his time frame for returning is going to be, because that how he goes through that process is going to depend on when he actually can start working with the team.
But everything else, when they say like they're really pumped or he's attacking his rehab or things are going great, like that's just to reassure fans. Like that's just nothing. That's just words. They'll find out. At this point, they got a good report from the docs, although probably they don't know the exact report unless Brock Purdy and his agent just willingly turned it over to the team, which you don't have to give up your medical records to your employers. Is the last time I checked. I don't think you have to. So, I mean, we'll see what happens. I think they're a little in the dark.
I think I think that is a little bit of just coach speak, because and that they're not going to come out, even if he was
like, oh God, I don't know.
Yeah, they're not going to come out and say that right now. They're going to wait. So we don't know. We don't really know. It seems like everything's progressing on path the way it's supposed to go, but we don't know 100% for certain. The next thing we'll find out is in June.
True. Okay, where we at? Gammon Brown asks, how much longer will Bobby Turner coach? My honest worry when rewatching the game is I see Purdy throwing balls that should have been intercepted, and Trey. Purdy does have a lot of those on film, but I mean, so did Jimmy at a lot of times, and so did a lot of quarterbacks. I think the thing with Brock was that he was throwing a ton of touchdown passes, and if he can throw 30 to 40 touchdown passes a year, he'll live with the picks. But I don't know if that's a part of his game that's going to be there forever. We'll see.
Yeah, this is one of those things that comes up a lot with Purdy. I see a lot of people talk about the passes that should have been intercepted. We don't have enough of a real sample size with Lance to be able to really dig into it. But what I can tell you is that Purdy's turnover-worthy plays, according to PFF, is 2.5. Trey Lance last season was 2.6. Trey Lance in his rookie year, when he had a little bit more throws, 4.3. So take that for what it's worth. I mean,
2.6,
it's only
not the same.
Yeah, it's only 2 point. We're only talking about 3.5 games, right? 3.25 games, and I know he got a little bit of in starts, and he got the half against Seattle. Take it for what it's worth. I think this brings up another piece that I push back on is the turnover machine of Sam Darnold, and saying that's not who Trey Lance is, because in the small sample size that we've seen of Trey Lance, that's not the case, especially when you look at what he's done in his starts. He's turned the ball over. He's thrown an interception in every start. except for one
Okay.
when he only played the quarter.
Well, a distinction I wanted to make real quick before we move on was one thing I really do like about Brock Purdy's game, and I call him a backup quarterback because he can't push the ball down the field like other quarterbacks. But one thing he does really well, which I think he'll always do well, is play in the red zone. Like you don't have to push the ball down the field in the red zone. What you got to do is keep plays alive, and get outside the pocket and scramble around a little bit and anticipate openings. And he can do all of that really, really well. And I think that's why he had a lot of touchdown passes. And for all the things we like about Trey Lance, he can push the ball down the field. In his starts, they haven't scored a lot of points a lot of times because they haven't executed well in the red zone. And part of it is, the offense, and part of it is just, it's hard to be a quarterback in the red zone, and you got to give Brock credit for how good he looks in that area of the field.
Yeah, and that is the biggest difference is the red
That's
zone
hard.
play. And again, we're talking about a small sample size with Lance, but still, you're right. In the games that he's been out there, they have not
He's better than Jimmy.
Yeah, for sure. That's definitely
Yeah.
with Brock Purdy for sure. They're much, but that's part of the reason why they elevated their scoring when he went in over what Garoppolo was doing. And with
I'll
Lance,
never forget.
That's partly why. I was just gonna say. I think that's partly why with Lance they haven't been able to get over. They've only gotten over 20 points once. I think it's because they get down into that scoring area, and it just gets a lot tougher to play quarterback. And when it comes to Lance, who knows what exactly it is? Maybe his release. I don't know.
See, to me, that's where you start using the quarterback run game. Like that's what they do in Philadelphia. Because if you get it right, you get touchdowns. What I thought was interesting in the first KC game, in the KC game when they just got McCaffrey, he didn't really know the offense, but he played a lot in that game. He started, he was on the field. They went right down the field with Jimmy Garoppolo and kicked the field goal. Like you could put all the players in the world on this team, but Jimmy Garoppolo in the red zone still doesn't really have it. And that's why they were scoring more points with Brock Purdy, because when you got there, he was actually a playmaker. You got to give him credit for that. He was legitimately a playmaker in the low red zone.
Yeah, that was the biggest difference in that KC game. Yeah, you're right. That's the field goal, and then the other one in the red zone is the pick at the end of the half.
So, that's why I was against that McCaffrey trade. I'm like, dude, you could put Calvin freaking Johnson on this team. You're still going to be kicking field goals. But then Brock Purdy came. I'm like, okay, well, had I known, then I would have been all for the McCaffrey trade. Because he's a pretty good weapon to have in the red zone.
Yeah, he's a nice little player, huh?
He's a nice little player. Oh, he wanted to know about Bobby Turner too. He's 74. I don't know. At a certain point, Kyle and his dad are going to have to let him retire. Like, leave him alone.
Yeah, he keeps wanting to come back.
He might want to work.
Yeah.
He might want to work. He took a year off.
Mm-hmm.
He wants to work. Tony Nagatani says, I worry about the human element. In my honest opinion, Purdy should start on PUP just so he can get truly healthy and get his body as healed as possible. Well, again, I think the Niners don't know what's going to happen. All options are open. And if I had to guess, I think that's probably the most likely option. But I often guess wrong.
It just all depends on where he is. I think, and my stance on it is if he's healthy, he plays. If he's healthy and they feel like he gives them the best chance of winning, he plays. The whole, he needs to be truly healthy. He needs to be fully healed. All I'm going to say is Joe Montana got surgery on his back. He was playing a game 56 days later.
Don't you dare compare Brock Purdy to Joe. Okay, but I did already. What I think is going to happen is, remember last year at training camp when Jimmy was there, but he was on the side field because, he was good. He was cleared. But he had, he was kind of building up that strength. And I kind of feel like that's going to be Purdy this year. Like, they know what they have in Purdy. They like Purdy. They want to take it slow with Purdy. He'll be on the side field, and they'll be, it'll be the Trey Lance show. It'll be Trey's looking great, or Trey's not looking great, and it's a legitimate competition between him and Sam Darnold, one of the two. Or they're both playing like crap, and it's like, Brock, please, we need you. I don't know, one of those three.
Yeah, I agree. I do think that at the beginning of camp, we're going to see Purdy working on the side field. It just depends on where he is in his process. If he can come back earlier, we'll see him on the field. If not, I agree, we'll see him over there as they try to kind of push the other two quarterbacks along.
Absolutely. Joshua Wyatt says, if you're BP's agent, do you advise him to rush back?
No, you don't advise him to rush back. You advise him to do everything that he needs to do, and you tell him that as soon as he's healthy, that he plays. It's not really, but that's not about rushing it. There seems to be this belief that if he's playing week one, it's a rush job, and I don't see that at all. I think if he's healthy and he's able to play, and his doctors have cleared him, and he's been able to go through everything that he needs to get himself ready to play in an NFL game, then he should be out there. That's not rushing him back. And if I'm his agent, I'm not asking him to rush back, because that ruins everything else down the road. Because if you rush him back and he isn't healthy, right, then that really screws him. It's much better to have him be fully healthy, even if it's, in time for week 1, if that makes sense.
If he feels like he's somewhat ready to go and he doesn't play, now you're sort of taking your career out of your hands, right? Like, this is a really good team. What if Trey Lance hits the ground running with McCaffrey this year? What if Darnold hits the ground running with McCaffrey this year? What if you never really get that opportunity again? So I could see why the agent and the player might not want to give another player an opportunity to take away the best roster in the world from him.
That's why he's attacking it, right? That's why he's attacking his
because someone on this team is going to be like banished to Arizona or Detroit or not Jackson, but some team that's reloading. Someone's going to have to go, Trey or Sam or Brock. And if you might want to start week 1 if you don't want that guy to be you, because this team's pretty good.
Yes.
Yeah. That's the way I look at it. Jimmy didn't want to leave this team. Not for a long time.
No.
Who is the 49ers player to root for in your mind? A lot of people pick sides. It's almost like a civil war of 49er fans around here. But if there was one player to bring us all together that we could all root for, who do you think it is? I'm a fan.
This is a topic that I threw to you, and I'm stealing this from NFL Network, because it was put out there, and the player that they said that you should root for is Brock Purdy, because he's the underdog because of the 7th round Mr. Irrelevant, all that kind of stuff. He said you'd root for Brock Purdy, and I'm gonna say, if you're gonna root for Brock Purdy because he's the underdog, I'm gonna go against the grain. I'm gonna say you do the same thing with Trey Lance, because Trey Lance is the true underdog in this situation. So my stance on who I think should start week 1 if he's healthy. But if Trey Lance can turn this whole career around this offseason during training camp and all that kind of stuff, that's something that it's hard not to be like, hey, that's pretty good for that kid.
Yeah, I would say it's hard not to root for Trey Lance, and that's why it kind of bugs me online when I see some Niner fans just kind of like gloating about how awful he is. It's like, wait a second, isn't he on your team, the team that you root for? And like, hasn't he like gotten injured? I'm not saying you. I know. I'm not saying you at all. But you know what I'm talking about? Like the
Absolutely.
80 49ers of the world and the Lobs. Hey, shout out to 80 49ers and Lobs all day. But you know what I'm talking about? The guys who are just preying on his downfall. It's like, wait a second, what does this guy do to you personally, man? Like, he got injured. He got placed in a position where the expectations were way beyond what he could actually deliver in. He was really young. Don't you kind of root for a guy like that to turn it around before it all goes away?
And I think especially from a fan's perspective, I think you should be rooting for all your players, and even some of the other folks. If you're a Trey Lance guy, you're a Trey Lance guy, but you should also want Sam Darnold to play really well too. Now, I'm not going to root for Sam Darnold. I don't think anybody's going to root for Sam Darnold to do anything. But what you're talking about in terms of like just basically the people that just shit on Trey Lance constantly,
all the time.
That's what are you doing? That's the same, and that's not good either. That's because I don't agree with that. I think that Lance did show some things. He showed some things against. He had a good game against Houston. I think he struggled against Chicago. He had ups and downs, and there's just so many ebbs and flows with his game. I think that's one of the issues with him. But I when it comes to players who root for Brock Purdy, definitely. And if you're in the,
you got to root for both of them.
If you're in the camp that wants to root for Trey Lance, I can understand why you're going to root for him, because right now with where he is, his stock has gone from here to, about here in terms of the way that people are looking at his ability to be a big time player in the NFL.
Also, I think Sam Darnold is someone you can root for. He didn't do anything wrong. He's never gotten arrested. I mean, his crime is that he wasn't worth the 3rd pick. Like, okay, so what? I mean, he's willing to be a backup quarterback. You can't say the same about Josh Rosen. I mean, it's not like he has like a arrogant demeanor. He seems like he's a down-to-earth guy, maybe a little too down-to-earth for a franchise quarterback. I mean, I don't know how he carries himself, but what's wrong with Sam Darnold? Yeah, he's gotten opportunities on crap teams. Now he's still 25. It's nice that he's not getting written off either.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see what Sam Darnold is, because I know that the talent is there. Like, Mayoko said he throws, you turn on the highlights, right? I mean, he
The
makes the
highlights.
throws. He has some
The
really good
highlights.
stuff. And even with Carolina,
Jordan Palmer swears by him. Jordan Palmer freaking swears by him.
even with Carolina in those first 3 games of the 2021 season, there's a lot of really good stuff that you can see. And he was okay last year in the 6 games. The last game, I know he didn't play well, but there's some things throughout there that are really good. And if the 49ers have the ability to make him a more consistent player because he's been in the league a little bit longer, then that benefits the 49ers. And that's been my biggest pushback, is against the people who are saying that he can't do it. I think people think that I'm in the Sam Darnold camp, and really what I'm saying is, why are you saying that Sam can't do it? Why are you saying that Darnold can't do this when we haven't seen him in a situation like what we have here? And you look at the Alex Smith situation, you look at Steve Young, those are the two. I'm just sticking with the 49ers. The guys that turned it around once they got into a good position. And you look at the 49ers, you've got Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle. You got a stable of running backs. You've got great left tackle in Trent Williams. You've got an offensive line that's returning 4 of the 5 starters from last year. This is an offense that you should be able to operate if you're a NFL level quarterback.
Yeah, and I'm not sure that he is. I guess we'll have to see. And I guess my question is, was it smart to take on the Sam Darnold reclamation project and give him $3.5 million guaranteed with, options for bonuses if he plays and plays well? Or do you just want to draft another quarterback, considering how much success you had with Brock Purdy last year? I mean, at the time, I think we said you got to bring in a quarterback with experience. So, okay, is Sam Darnold's experience good? It seems like you're trying to rewire him and undo the bad experiences that he had. Instead of spending, a fair amount for him, they drafted a kicker at 99. Then you drafted a backup tight end at 101. You could have had your pick of any freaking quarterback in the draft, saved 5 of them, and you took Darnold instead. So, and paid him more than you would have had to pay a rookie. So you must really like this guy. You better be right. You better be right that he's a functional backup, because all of a sudden it feels like you just take an experienced quarterback from college who's got some accuracy and poise and throw him on this team. It might work out. And there were a bunch of guys like that.
Yeah, for sure. The kid out of TCU, if you watch his stuff,
Yep.
he looks like Brock Purdy with the way that he
Yep.
was able to move around and make plays and all those kind of things. And you kind of look at his scouting report, doesn't have a big arm, but he can make the throws and all that kind of stuff. And so that would have been a smart direction. And I know you've said this a number of times, and I do. Why not if you just throw out a quarterback every year at the end of the draft? What do you have to lose? Gives you a back into your roster during camp guy, and maybe he sticks, and maybe he doesn't.
Philly took Tanner McKee in round 6. Doesn't mean they like him. It just means why the hell not? He's a quarterback, and it's round 6.
Yeah,
fine by me.
Mm-hmm.
Fine by he might be Nick. He might be the next Nick Foles, and if he's not, you could just do it again next year. No harm, no foul.
Right. Especially
Flave says Darnold is 21-35 over his career, while his teams went 4-22 without him. Interesting stat. Think it shows that although his team sucked, they were still significantly better with him than with other quarterbacks, including Baker. I prefer Darnold to Baker. I don't like Baker at all.
Yeah, this is an interesting one because again, go back to 2021. There's been a lot of people that said, "Hey, look at Darnold. He had Christian McCaffrey, he had DJ Moore, and he still sucked." Well, they only played 4 times together, and so you're looking at 4 games, and in 4 games they went 3-1 on a team that went 5-12. So that tells you a little bit about when he has talent around him, he can make things happen. Later on in the season is the game that he sucked with those guys on the field, because those first 3 games he completed 68% of his passes. And then, it dropped down to 63 because he had a terrible game later in the season. That was when McCaffrey was coming back. So was McCaffrey fully healthy? Who knows? All that kind of stuff. We'll see. I think there's a little something to Darnold, and it'll be fun to watch how this whole thing plays out. It's part of the soap opera that is the 49ers.
Yeah, and I think what's great about the soap opera, let's stick with the soap opera analogy, okay? The main character in the soap opera for the last 5-6 years was Jimmy Garoppolo. It was almost like they were paying big money for this actor, and they got him from Hollywood, and it was like Tom Cruise or something, you know what I mean? But he's off the show now. He's gone. And it feels like Sam Darnold just slid into his place. because the whole thing with Jimmy was that he may not be the best quarterback. He may not have the biggest arm. He may not be the most mobile, but the team believes they can win with him. And if the team believes they can win with him, what more do you really need, right? It's 53 men. You got to get behind a quarterback. They're behind Jimmy. They're a great team. And if they believe in him, then that's like 80% of the battle, right? And with Trey, even though we wanted them to give him a chance, if they don't believe they can win with Trey, then they're not going to win. And that's a tough one. With Sam, it feels like they've already convinced themselves that they can win with him. And that's, again, why I feel like Trey Lance fans are like, hey, yo, wait a second. But that is, listen to the way Christian McCaffrey talks about Sam Darnold and tell me that he doesn't think that this team can win right now with Sam Darnold.
It's funny that you bring up Jimmy Garoppolo in this because there was a tweet you sent out last week. I don't remember exactly what it was, but you were talking about, I think it had to do with like Garoppolo and Darnold or Garoppolo or something like that. And I was like, so basically what you're telling me is, I didn't respond to it, but in my head, I was like, basically what you're saying is that Sam Darnold is just a more mobile Jimmy Garoppolo.
Yes. With like redder hair, but essentially, he slides right into their friend group.
Yeah. He's not.
It's like in South Park, like 20 years ago when Kenny died and they kept him dead for like an entire season, and they did like a tryouts for the new friend. Sam Darnold won the contest. He's the new. They're gonna call him Jimmy. They're like, Sam, do you mind if we call you Jimmy? We're just gonna call you Jimmy, okay? Because we like Jimmy and we liked having a friend named Jimmy, so we're just gonna call you Jimmy. And that's fine. It's cool. It's fine.
Yeah, we're gonna show up at the training camp. He's gonna be wearing 10.
I'm so sorry, Sam. Sam, he's gonna flip out on me. I'm always nervous about the first day of OTAs because I talk a lot of shit, and then that's the day that Javon Kinlaw he was like, hey, you talked a lot of shit, huh? Sorry, Javon. So which player is going to be mad at me in 2 weeks? It's going to be Darnold, isn't it? Hey, man, what is your problem? Nothing. I think you're great. Sam, in advance, I apologize. In advance. Whew. I'm going to get cooked. I'm right, too. Okay. Scott McLuhan said something recently that blew my mind. He said that Cameron Latu reminds him a lot of Tony Gonzalez. He told this to Matt Barrows and The Athletic. This is quite a compliment considering Tony Gonzalez is one of the greatest tight ends of all time. He was a first-round pick. He went to Cal. We all know Tony Gonzalez, and I was like, this is ridiculous. Cam Latu is slow. And then I looked up Tony Gonzalez. They said he ran a 4.83. I'm like, so I guess I shouldn't write off Cam Latu purely based on his 40-yard dash because there are similarities. I mean, he was a basketball player like Tony Gonzalez, and Tony Gonzalez won without speed as well. What do you think of this comparison?
I read it and I was like, wow, that's not what I thought.
Rich.
The only way that you could say that is because he did have a good number of touchdown catches at Alabama while he was there. Like you said before the show, all he does is catch touchdowns, right? That's what for Cam Latu.
12 touchdown catches, like 56 career catches. That's pretty good.
Yeah. So that's it's an interesting one because I don't know what to make of Latu. This is a guy that was supposed to have gone in the 200s that they took at 101. Definitely they liked him. And McLuhan did talk about that he looks like a basketball player, the way he moves and the way he kind of those types of things. So, I think with Gonzalez, he didn't have the speed, but he was a big threat in the red zone because he has that body, has that body control, that ability to put himself between the defender and the ball. And maybe that's where he sees Latu, but you don't get to there. And then Latu, he did say that, he's a work in progress when it comes to blocking, but you can see the progression there. So, that puts a lot of pressure on Brian Fleury, right? That's the tight end coach for the 49ers. Puts a lot of pressure on him now to develop him.
Yeah. You got young Tony Gonzalez, buddy. Let's see it. No, the thing about Tony Gonzalez, I'm looking at his numbers. I mean, he averaged 11 yards a catch, so he wasn't burning people down the seam. But he had 111 touchdown catches in his 111 touchdown catches in his career. And it was funny. He played until he was 37, and he had 8 touchdown catches that year, and 8 the year before that, and 7 the year before. He was just a freaking machine. He probably ran a 5 flat when he was 37. But if you're that kind of player, I guess you can catch touchdown passes. And if, let's say Brock Purdy is the starting quarterback for the next 3-4 years, he'll have some limitations throwing the ball down the field, but in the red zone, he likes throwing to tight ends. He's really good in the red zone. this guy might be a key player. This guy might be drafted with Brock Purdy in mind.
Yeah, the thing, or he was drafted with Trey Lance in mind too, because Trey Lance was a big tight end guy when he was at North Dakota State. I mean, that's
That
just
is true.
we've seen
That is true.
the 49ers have been very successful with Kyle Shanahan without the ability to really take the top off of defenses. Because of the running game opens up that middle of the field, and they're able to kind of still get those mid-level run after the catch throws across the middle and that kind of stuff. And so yeah, with whether it's either of these guys, I'm going to stick with Brock Purdy here. But Brock Purdy working with a guy of Cam Latu can be a Tony Gonzalez type that plays right into his skill set. And I think that's the direction they're going to at the 49ers, right? They don't have a tight end behind George Kittle. So, and we know Kyle Juszczyk's getting up there in age. So maybe the direction we're going to see is more 12 personnel from this team in the years to come. Probably not this year, but maybe next year.
It's so hard to find fullbacks. I would think possibly. Yep. Shaz the Great says dark horse is what you didn't see coming and what you simply didn't expect to prosper. Underdog, someone or something you see, but underestimate. Okay. True. Well, dark horse is someone you don't see coming. I like that. Okay.
Yeah, and I think, well, and here's the thing though, with when it comes to Trey Lance, people are underestimating him big time, right? They are definitely underestimating him big time. So if you want to say in this scenario, Trey Lance, I think, is the underdog, and the dark horse would have been Brock Purdy, because you weren't expecting him to do anything. You didn't see anything coming with him, given this definition. You didn't expect anything from him last year when he stepped onto the field. I know when I thought he played well during training camp and stuff, but when he stepped in against Miami, I wasn't expecting what we saw.
When you asked me which is the player to root for, I was going to say Alfredo Gutierrez, but you took it a different direction. I liked your answer better. But I'm still rooting for Alfredo. That would be the best story ever. Come on, buddy. Let's go Alfredo.
Starting right tackle, Alfredo Gutierrez.
Hell yeah.
Fantastic, yes.
I want to see that happen. Flave says Darnold is basically the same processor as Jimmy Garoppolo, but much better arm and mobility. Damn, Flave, you just jump off Jimmy like that? Now you're... How you going to do Jimmy like that, Flave? That's your guy. Wow. I just can't see him being worse than Jimmy Garoppolo. And if that's true, then he's better than Trey and TBD with Purdy. Wow. He doesn't even, he's what, beyond Purdy to Darnold. Wow. Didn't see that coming.
Just kick him to the curb when it comes to Garoppolo. Awful.
I have a childhood friend who lives around the corner from me, who's a big Raider fan, and he's amused by my Niners coverage. And he texted me the other day and he's like, hey, does Sam Darnold have like an irrational group of mega fans like Jimmy G does, or is he not handsome enough? And I was like, I don't think he's handsome enough, but I guess I'm wrong.
Oh, we got Flave here.
Here we are. Flave. Sorry, Flave. I love you, Flave. He always donates. Well, I guess he has a lot to say, so that's why he donates $10. I guess it's by the word.
There you go.
I thought it was generous. I don't know. Let's talk a little Warriors Lakers, because we got 10 minutes left and the season's almost over, maybe. And I think it's a fascinating series. After the Warriors won game 2, I was like, oh, it's over. Warriors got him. And then they just lost 2 in a row. And it's not going so great for the defending champs. Can't blame the free throws after game 4. What are you seeing, Jack? Is it over?
I think it's over. This is just a bad matchup. This is a bad matchup for the Warriors, right? The Warriors were 1-3 against the Lakers during the regular season. They're now 2-6 against them when you add in the postseason. The Lakers' interior presence with AD, that's a big piece of it. But the fact that
they're so soft when they go to the freaking cup, like someone dunk it. Wiggins did it that one time. Everyone else is trying to it's like, no, you're not gonna make that.
Yeah, or you see them drive it into the lane and then they stop, and you could really see in game 3, you really saw the impact of that interior defense of the Lakers, even on Stephen Curry, who was so good against Sacramento, taking the ball to the rim, and against the Lakers.
Big difference between Sabonis and Anthony Davis.
Yeah, and top of Davis, I think the other thing that's underrated here is LeBron James and his defense, because how many times do you see him guys going up for layups and he's coming from behind where they don't even see him coming, and he's just got those long arms that it's like go gadget arm, and he just wats the ball out of the air.
It's the best thing he does at this point in his career, in my opinion, is the swoop in block from out of nowhere. Because on offense, I'm not sure what he does.
I think that's the biggest thing, and it really the interior they did a better job last night pulling Davis up to the top of the key to kind of open up the
in the first half.
Yeah, and This just isn't. They just the Lakers just are a much improved team over the course of the season. I know they're the seventh seed, but they're not the seventh seed in the way that they've played over the second half, the end portion of the season, and they just match up. They're a tough matchup for the Warriors. I don't see how the Warriors can go from 2-6 on the season against the Lakers to 5-6 and win the series. I just don't see it.
I just feel like this Warriors team is not nearly as good as it was last year. They had Otto Porter. They had a guy named Jordan Poole last year. You may have heard of him. He was actually pretty good last year. And some people say like Draymond Green punching them in the face hurt his confidence. Maybe. I look at it as he was in a contract year. He got the bag and he was not a serious player. He didn't deserve the bag. And now he is revealing himself as the, you know,
I don't
as what he
disagree with
really
you.
is.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I've watched the bits and pieces that I've watched of them during the regular season before the playoffs. I just, it's like, get the ball out of this guy's hands. What is he doing?
It's this guy.
People like him because he makes the shot every once in a while, but for the most part, he's a negative player for you. So yeah, that's that.
For the whole part.
Yeah.
Well, he gets hot here and there, but I think people like that he like struts around the court. It's like, dude, who do you think you are, man? You want the glory, but you're not that good.
You made a good point about the Otto Porter thing too, is because he was a nice like sixth man scorer for him, seventh man scorer for him. That they just don't have it. If Curry's not going wild, they struggle to find people to make the shots. And last night it was, look at last night's game in particular. They get down, they're up 3 with about a minute and a half to go, and Klay Thompson just takes 2 awful shots.
So bad.
Just 2 really bad shots, and then they just totally just disintegrated at the end of that game. When it was time for the champs to play like champs, they fell apart and they didn't play like champs at all. And that's been happening to them all year, really.
No doubt. And what's frustrating to me is this Lakers team isn't gonna win at all. Like, they're not that good. LeBron's he can't shoot like he used to, and he can't drive like he used to. Davis is great on defense, but he's freaking passive on offense. I mean, they're going to lose because they couldn't stop Lonnie Walker. Like, you have the best player in the series, Steph Curry, and you can't get this done because you banked on James Wiseman, Jonathan Kuminga, Jordan Poole, and a bunch of young guys to be your bench, and none of them came through. And that's why you're going to lose because the Lakers got Lonnie Walker and you didn't? Like, that is really a weird way to go out. This is one of the greatest dynasties. I think of them as like, the Niners of the NBA. And that's how it's all going to come down. Like, ugh, weird.
No, you're right on there. They don't have that additional score. They don't have that bench guy. They just don't have anything. And it's the Curry show. It's
too old because he's exhausted.
He's having to do everything on his own, and I thought Wiggins hasn't quite been the guy that you're hoping to have when he came back, and
another guy who got a lot of money.
So I don't know. I don't see them doing it. Klay Thompson, he's just been so up and down. I don't know. We'll see. I don't think they're going to do it. They've got 2 home games here though, so if they can win this next one, take it down to LA. If they can get lucky down in LA, who knows in game 7 if they can even get it that far. But I think this ends either in game 5 or 6.
They desperately need 2 days off. They've been playing every other day since the King series.
Yeah, since the King series, it was right back in.
They had it. They were up in the 4th quarter and just ran out of gas against 38-year-old LeBron. Freaking no one could stop Lonnie Walker. I can't get over that. But that's what happens when you have no freaking bench and you have to go 7 games against the Kings that never should have happened. And you give away games 1 and 3. I mean, maybe they got screwed at the foul line, whatever. Stop fouling. I mean, it's all going to catch up to you. You can't play 7-game series with 35-year-old Steph, and think that he's just going to be bionic. So I'm not writing them off yet. I think they're going to win game 5. And then anything could happen game 6. But yeah, they look tired as hell.
Game 1 and 4, they had opportunities to win both those games, and they just couldn't get it done. They had an opportunity in game 1, they had an opportunity in game 4. Steph Curry isn't making the shot at the end of the game.
It's going to be interesting to see what they do at the end of the season. If they get eliminated from this, I think statistically that 5-man unit, they're starting 5, Curry, Klay, Wiggins, Draymond, and Looney had the best net rating in the league. Are they going to blow that up? Because it seems like all they need is a couple bench pieces. Like the next Otto Porter, the next Sean Livingston, the next Leandro Barbosa, the next Mo Spates. Like, is it so hard to find those guys? What you did was you really banked on, you blew it in the draft. Kuminga, Wiseman, like Moody's good. You didn't play him all year. All this stuff really bit you.
Yeah, they did.
Really
Wiseman was a bad pick. Kuminga
Yeah.
hasn't looked like he's been able to get anything done.
He can't play a role.
Yeah, you're right. And so they're young guys that they banked on, like you said, just haven't come through. And you bring it, you have to make the trade for GP2. He starts last night. He has a decent game, but
threw up on the court.
Hey, sometimes it's a hard game.
Something's going around on that team. Looney's sick. He's throwing up on the court. Jordan Poole can't play basketball anymore. I don't know what his excuse is. I'd love to know the Jordan Poole story, man. What happened to Jordan?
Hey, guy read one too many press clipping for himself, and then I think I don't know. Nobody knows. I don't know what happened in that thing between him and Draymond, but I can easily see something happen in the practice. Him doing his little, because he does have a little bit of a showboat to him, or he just has a little bit of immaturity to him, and Draymond decided he was going to take it into his own hands and let him let him have it.
I mean, he got the $40 million a year extension, and Draymond hasn't gotten an extension yet from the Warriors. And if they get in a little bit of an argument in practice, and Jordan says that's why they paid me instead of you, I mean, that's all it would take. Probably. That's why they paid me instead of you. I don't know.
Yeah, especially for all that Draymond's done for the Warriors during his time there.
Excuse me, Jordan. What did you just say to me? Yeah, I don't know. I'd like to think that Steph Curry has it in him to give it back to LeBron down 3-1, sort of get that monkey off his back, but he can't do it. I don't think he can do it by himself. He'd have to do it 3 times in a row. He did it once in Sacramento. He needs help from someone. And Anthony Wiggins, he never adjusts his play. He's always going to take like 12 shots like it's, mid-January. Yeah, he plays well, but there's just zero urgency to his game, especially on offense.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, it's been a wild series, and I know a lot of people are complaining about the fouls and all that kind of stuff.
That's over with.
Last night you lose by 3. The difference in the game was that the Lakers hit every free throw and you missed 3. So, that's the difference.
Also, watch the Warriors get a ton of free throws if they need them tomorrow.
Hey,
keep
it going, because what are we going into? Tomorrow's Wednesday, a Friday night. A Friday night game in LA would be big ratings for the NBA.
Agree. And also, I have the conspiracy theory that, that the NBA wants 7 games. To me, 6 is good enough, because 6, that way both teams get 3 playoff games. That's a lot of money. So that right there, you're fair. 6 is good. 7 is gravy for the whole league. But I mean, I think this is, although I don't think the Lakers are going to straight up lay down, but it's an older team. LeBron conserves energy. Anthony Davis conserves energy. I just don't see him playing like that in Game 5. I think so. That means the Warriors have to get someone going. Like who's it going to be? I can see Clay getting going at home. Can you possibly get Jordan Poole making shots again? Can you? Is it over?
I think it needs to come from Klay Thompson. I don't think.
Yeah.
I think what they did, the reason you had Peyton playing the other night was because they were trying to get Davis out of the bottom there. They're trying to pull him up. So I think that's why he was in the game the way that they utilized him. So I think it has to come from Klay Thompson. And after game 2 going into game 3, I said this is the game that's going to tell us what it is, because usually as a road team you steal game 1, you're like, whew, we got it, now we can relax as we're going to go back home. And so then you had the Warriors with a blowout, and you go home and they just blew them out, and it's just staying there. So if you kind of follow that pattern, this is the game, like you said, where the Lakers might just take their foot off the gas just a little bit, give the Warriors a little bit of an opening here to make one more game go.
Is it too much to ask Andrew Wiggins to be more aggressive? He's 28 years old. He should be right in his prime. He's way more physically fit than Klay Thompson, who's had a torn Achilles and torn ACL. And yet he's just, taking, doing what he always does. 14 shots, 17 points. I mean, can't you be the second option? Can you be a second option, or are you born to be a third option? I don't get that.
Yeah, he's kind of one of those guys. He's in between. He's a floater.
Well, he's a floater. He literally floats through every game. Hell of a defender, though. I'm not trying to talk. He's a champion. Hell of a defender, but it's like you see Klay working so hard on offense. It's like, dude, you're not a second option anymore. Wiggins should be, but he doesn't want to be. But Clay it's like, all right.
Yeah, that's the difference
Pretty
between
much.
where they are right now.
Warriors coming back and winning the series, bet. I wouldn't bet against the Warriors. But also Steve Kerr, man, you just stood there with your hands in your pockets when Lonnie Walker torched Steph Curry over and over and over again. Like, you make good adjustments between games, but what the hell was that?
Yeah, I'm with you.
Do something. What was that? Flave says, have never said Jimmy Garoppolo is the best quarterback in the league. LOL. I was giving you a hard time, buddy. Just that he was better than Trey. If I got any evidence showing I'm wrong, I'd re-about. I was giving you a hard time.
I need Flav. Start following me, Flav. You need to come over and start watching my shows because these super chats are nice. Go, you need to get over here, Flav.
Mr. Lone Wolf says, hi, Grant. Thanks for the show. Biggest news about the Niners this year is Flave didn't leave with Jimmy, LMAO. No, he is now president of the Sam Darnold fan club, which is good because no one else is in it. He's
the charter member.
He's a charter member. All right. Who plays tonight? Is the game starting now?
I don't know. I'm not sure who else is playing in the. Yeah, I'm sure there's an Eastern Conference game that's going on right now. We're about to start.
Well, my dad had an eye surgery today. It went well. He's up at his house napping. I'm gonna go get him some Chinese food. Get him some war wonton soup. I like the war wonton because you get a little extra. You know, a little whatnot along with the wontons, which there's not much. It's not much better in life than a wonton. I love a wonton and an egg roll.
The egg rolls. I'm with you.
And a pot sticker.
Yeah, egg rolls.
Oh, you hesitated on those wontons.
Yeah, the wontons. I'm not sure about those, but the pot stickers and the egg rolls. Bring those bad boys on.
Bring them up. All right, Jack. Thank you very much. Thanks everyone for watching. This was a good show.
Yeah, thank you.
See you guys soon.